I think that might be my favorite part of the
we'll clip
discourse.
that. We'll clip that. Matthew Poitras is the next Braden Point. Just clip it now.
Point. I'm saying he's the next Patrice Bergeron. I'll freaking say it. I'll freaking say it. But yeah, I mean, I think impressive end, and I also think it's one of those things. Jerry Seinfeld used to talk a lot about how when a comedian does a set, sometimes you hit that 50-minute mark, an hour mark, and you say, wow, that's really good. That's strong. And then the comedian goes a little bit longer, and you go, oh, it's a little too long. And it's the ending that people remember most. And yes, I said the San Jose game was not Poitras' best. The Kings game, he built on that a little bit, was a little bit better. Anaheim connects. And I think that's what people are going to remember. And I'm glad for his sake that it was that final game of the Western Conference, or the Western road trip. Now you got to go back to Chicago.
Bruins Beat is brought to you by FanDuel, the exclusive wagering partner of the CLNS Media Network.
And welcome into the Bruins Beat on CLNS Media. My name's Evan Marinofsky, and today we are joined by our good friend, one Conor Ryan. Connor, what is up?
Evan, I'm doing well. How you doing?
Doing great. It is October 24th, and if time is flying by as it always is. And don't you know, Connor, the Bruins have started off quite hot. And all those people who were heartbroken at the end of last year, the Bruins are roping them right back in.
When I thought I was out, they pull me back in.
That's the case. I saw someone reply to one of my tweets saying, the Bruins are 5-0, but this is when the wheels are gonna start to fall off. And I wanted to reply, and I'm replying on the podcast. It's not April or May yet. Got him, just got him.
I mean, again, I still don't get, I understand the negative sentiment, and this team has crushed their loyal fans' hearts multiple times. I get it.
Many times,
yes. The people who are I'm not going to watch this year because I know because of last year. It's that mindset's as if I mentioned it before, if Breaking Bad came out and the first season or season or two is great, and everyone's oh, you got to watch this show, and I'm I'll wait till I have to figure out how it ends. I'm not going to watch it. That sounds like a miserable way to live your life. Sounds like a boring-ass way to live your life. So just enjoy it. The team's doing well. They're going to be competitive. I think at the very least we can all say that. This is a team that's going to be in the mix all year long, has younger players. Enjoy it. And you know what? Maybe you'll end up being surprised when you get to spring. Or maybe they'll lose again. Who knows? But you know what? That's sports. Enjoy it.
Exactly.
You could be the Patriots before this last game against the Bills, which is just a week-long misery parade. Please enjoy what you have right now.
Also, what else would you do with your time in the
Nothing.
winter?
Oh, people are also just full of shit. They'll still watch the games.
What are you going to watch other games? Are you going to become
you don't know how those teams' season's going to end either. So what's the point? What's the point of doing anything?
Exactly. No, I've never understood that. I get it, and when the moment hits last April, obviously you look at it and go, man, I can't believe I was, hanging on every puck bounce this entire season with this team and this and that. I also think the expectations have changed. I think internally, obviously, they still think they're cup contenders, but, Bergeron, Krejci, a lot of those, Hall, Bertuzzi are gone. It's a different looking team this year, which makes it more fun, in a sense, to watch and to follow every week, which is obviously what we do. So maybe we're a little biased, but I don't think we are, because I still do it with every other team I watch. But it's interesting. I always love the people. And it's also fun, when your heart does get broken, you're heartbroken with a million other people. So it's you're in it together. You're feeling that
a parade of misery. It's
exactly. You do it at once. Everyone's in a bad mood at the same time every year. But Bruins go out west. They take care of business. 3-0. They get wins over the Sharks, the Kings, the Ducks. Why can't the Ducks just wear those jerseys every single game?
Please.
I feel it's the sentiment, sort of what people are saying is so loud at this point with this team. Wear those every game. Why are you wasting your time with the D and the black and the orange home jerseys they wear that are really weird? But anyways, we'll start here. Opening thoughts on the Cali trip. What do you have?
I'd like to formally apologize because my last podcast, Pumped Bear, did with Ty Anderson, we raised the point of, is Matt Poitras hitting a wall? And he said, screw you, man. Because, again, as has been the case throughout, I think, his limited time here, even during the preseason where every time the Bruins have handed him a tough test or there's been some adversity, he kind of takes it on the chin and responds and delivers. And I think he had a really quiet game against San Jose, built his game a lot more against the Kings, didn't have any points, but was making plays, looking like the guy we've seen pretty much since the start of the preseason, and then breaks through with a 2-goal game. And just impressive all around. He also had that great setup to, I think it was Kevin Shattenkirk in the second period. Like, he just looks like a guy that belongs, right? And it's one thing where you look at the 9-game sample size and you can debate whether or not he's already earned that spot, which I kind of think he has. Like, he's got his signature game now. Like, all these guys mentioned, like Lucic, when he had his 9-game sample size, he points to that Gordie Howe hat trick he had in game 4 against the Kings as being like, all right, this was my moment. Don Sweeney even mentioned, like, Pastrnak, that 2-goal game against the Flyers when he was 18. That was the moment they were like, all right, this guy's stamped out a spot. You can view that as the same through the same lens with someone like Poitras. And it's not just the fact that I think he should be rewarded for answering the call and continuing to adjust and fight through the challenges we all expected he would face in the NHL level, but I think it comes down to the fact that when you look at this team, they're better when he's out there. Like, one, he's impacting the game positively. He's generating high danger chances. He's creating passes in grade A ice. Like, he's doing those things that is impacting a team that is still trying to find its cohesion at 5-on-5 play. But also, again, I don't think the forward lines are set in stone, but if you have a spot where Poitras can take over and a guy like Coyle is still with Frederick and Van Riemsdyk, again, the pieces start falling more into place. Like, even if you could make the argument that a Marchand, Zacha, Pastrnak line is a little too top-heavy, it becomes a lot more feasible if Poitras playing well with Geekie and DeBrusk driving play. We know what Coyle can do next to Frederick. Like, pieces start falling to play and you start having some cohesion there if that's the lines you want to roll with. And it's not like Poitras been a passenger. Like, he's impacting the game night in and night out, especially the guy like Geekie, which is good to see. I think Geekie's had a really strong start to the year. I think they played off each other very well. So, I mean, that has to be the biggest takeaway, right? This was the biggest question mark going into the year. This was the most consequential thing about whether Poitras could impact the game and fill out a spot down the middle. I think so far he's answered that, especially that game against Anaheim, which was huge for him and huge for the Bruins, I think.
I was going to say, I mean, they were supposed to lose that game last night.
Yes.
They were not playing great.
They were. It was not a good game, especially the first two periods.
No, it wasn't. And the details weren't there. And you can make a case that the whole trip, there were a lot of details missing throughout, a little bit messy at times, throughout those 3 games. And, again, that first goal goes to the right spot, right? Geekie, I think it was Geekie who found him in front of the net, just finds a little soft spot, gets a stick out there, puts it in, and then the second goal is, again, being in a good spot, being the screen on that play. And I just think he plays with such confidence. You look at, the way he handles the puck along the half walls, just his edge work, getting away from guys and stuff. It's impressive. And, I'm with you. I think we've both been on the same page kind of his entire time. Before and after we came around to wanting him up for the 9 games, is that, he belongs here. He belongs here. And I think, again, that Anaheim game, I mentioned it, like, details are missing. Second night of a back-to-back out in the West Coast. It's the last game of being out in California before you head to Chicago. And it's the kid who comes through for you. Like, I think that says a lot. And I know that, yes, quiet game against San Jose and, 3 points in 5 games. I think some people were expecting him to, light the world on fire in these 9 games. I think you got to temper the expectations a bit. But, if he can continue on this kind of pace of consistently impacting the game in little ways and then every now and again getting an assist, getting a goal, finishing the year with, I think we've said around 40 to 50 points, like somewhere in that range, you're cooking. You are cooking, and that's a great thing. So, again, getting ahead of myself a little bit with the point totals, but I just think he looks good. And it's all, as I said, it's the details too. It's the little things. And it gives you a lot of options. I continue to go back to that. And you hit it. Like, if you can now have Van Riemsdyk, Coyle, Frederick, I also was looking at that. Have you looked at that new NHL.com, the new NHL Edge thing?
I'm on it right now.
Yeah. Because I saw your face light up, and I said he's searching the interwebs for something. I think all of Poitras' shots. You can correct me if I'm wrong, because I was looking through a lot of different players. I was, like a kid in a candy store today, just like, oh, all these different players.
Flashes, like
it is like, oh, the patterns are so complicated. The advanced stats are so complicated. I believe most of Poitras' shots are from right in front of the net.
I think it's 5 of 8 are like in the direct low slot. I think it's like, I think 5 of his 8 shots are high danger looks. So.
Yes, which is solid. And I know a lot of people want him to shoot more. It was funny actually on that power play with like a minute left on Sunday night. He was just gunning to get that hat trick. Like there was a point he came off the half wall. There were guys open to pass to. Nope, I'm taking this shot. And obviously Gibson made the stop. One other thing on that NHL Edge thing that was interesting is the most of the Bruins shots are from high danger areas.
Yeah.
They don't have many around the perimeter. And I think that's a really good freaking thing. What do you think?
Yeah, it's kind of building off of, I think, what we saw a lot of last year with Jim Montgomery, where the emphasis is quality over quantity. Again, you could probably make the argument that they could probably get a little bit more offensive generation from their defensemen in terms of more shots up high, but they're not settling for things that are going to get blocked or anything like that. Like, they're being really selective with their shots. And when you have obviously a 60-goal scorer like Pasternak leading the way, that helps out. That can help you kind of skewer those stats a little bit. But this is a team that's built in a way where, again, scoring is not going to be nearly as easy for them as it was last year. You got a lot of bigger guys that do most of their damage down low. Makes sense. You want to be more selective, extend ozone time, cycle the puck, and generate chances that way. So, again, you got kind of two different ideologies. I mean, Vegas more or less one with the Cassidy approach, right, of just shot volume, like Carolina does that. You do a lot. There's different ways you can value that, but so far it's worked out in terms of the Bruins generating better looks down low. And again, you keep up that formula. It's not rocket science. You keep on firing pucks in the low slot. It's going to help your chances of scoring some goals. So I think it's especially with a guy like Poitras, that's really encouraging to see. That's something that I think is kind of ingrained in younger players. You either have it or you don't in terms of that willingness to operate down in that area of the ice. And he's shown it so far. I mean, that's what we've mentioned before is like, that's why, again, he kind of reminds you a little bit of like someone like Braden Point. Like, again, not saying he's going to be the same player. He's not going to be racking up 85 points, but not a big guy, but is, fearless in terms of getting into that area of the ice, making plays with that limited time of space. And he has the skill set to do that. And you've seen that so far from Poitras, of just being in the right spot, making the right reads, and generally the chances will be there for you if you operate in that part of the ice.
I think my favorite part of the Poitras discourse is, someone will say like a comparison, but, say, hey, it kind of reminds me of, and there's like 25 people with pitchforks and flames running at them like, no, shut up, no, don't say that. So I think that might be my favorite part of the
we'll clip that. We'll clip that. Matthew Poitras is the next Braden Point. Just clip it now.
Point. I'm saying he's the next Patrice Bergeron. I'll freaking say it. I'll freaking say it. But yeah, I mean, I think impressive end, and I also think it's one of those things. Jerry Seinfeld used to talk a lot about how when a comedian does a set, sometimes you hit that 50-minute mark, an hour mark, and you say, "Wow, that's really good." That's strong. And then the comedian goes a little bit longer. And you go, oh, it's a little too long. And it's the ending that people remember most. And yes, I said the San Jose game was not Poitras' best. The Kings game, he built on that a little bit, was a little bit better. Anaheim connects. And I think that's what people are going to remember. And I'm glad for his sake that it was that final game of the Western Conference, or the Western road trip. Now you got to go back to Chicago. There's other things I want to get to from this trip, because I think there's a lot of other takeaways. One big one that had everybody riled up on Saturday. But first, a word from our sponsor. All right, quick second here to tell you about our good friends over at FanDuel. Snap into action this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. Again, that's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So, Visit FanDuel.com/Boston and kick off the NFL season. Again, FanDuel.com/Boston. FanDuel, the official partner of the NFL. So one big takeaway and you've been tweeting about this a lot over the last 3 days, is the goaltending. And we've said this before the season. This team is going to go as far as the Ullmark and Swayman tandem can go. And through 5 games, these two guys are on another planet. Swayman has elevated his game. Ullmark has basically picked up where he left off last year. They're just, again, you have to consider they have not played anybody, that's likely to be in the Cup final come the spring. But I still think, the early signs of the way Ullmark's playing, the way Swayman's playing, there's a lot to like so far.
Yeah, that's going to be their biggest key, and kind of the anchor of their success this year is going to come down to defense and goaltending. And you could make the case this team could be 3-2 or something like that if it wasn't for the level of goaltending they've received. Even that Anaheim game, Anaheim had, it was like the 3.4 expected goals. Again, that's a sign of a goalie stealing game like that. Especially there was extended stretches where the Ducks were dominating the Bruins.
Should have had a goal. Should have had more than one goal.
Yeah. So you look at him and Swayman. Both guys are playing at a really high level, and it goes back to, again, when we had the discourse during the offseason about trading a guy. If you had a top pick or first round picks or what have you, maybe you have to weigh that option. But this team was not going to move a guy like Swayman, a really young, talented goalie, or a guy like Ullmark, the reigning Vezina winner, just for a cap dump or anything like that. These guys are too good. They're too important to this team. And if you look at, a lot of teams can view a goalie rotation, how much it's worth investing in 2 guys. When you're the Bruins and you have 2 number 1 goalies, guys that can take over games. And again, it's a long season. There's going to be stretches where these guys hit lulls. What helped them so much last year is that whenever there was a bit of a lull for one of those 2 guys, the other guy didn't falter. There was never a stretch where it was both of them had really rough games where you have to kind of build off of that. And again, that happens to every single goalie, but few teams have the luxury of having a guy you can turn to really kind of stem the tide there when things kind of go south for a goaltender over the long course of the season. They've just both been money so far. And I think you look at the way this team is built and how good they are already in net and how good they are defensively, it gives you a leeway and more time to kind of sort out this forward core. Because again, that's still very much a work in progress. Even if Poitras stays past these 9 games, still have a lot of work to do in terms of getting a consistent, a cohesive unit with that forward core. But tell you what, that trial and error, those lineup switches and reshuffles, a lot easier to do in the middle of a season or in the middle of a game, even when you have a brick wall in net. So it helps out quite a bit in terms of how the Bruins have navigated this early start to the season.
Exactly. It lets you try things out. The other thing I'll say is, and I've liked this through 5 games so far, I don't know if it's intentional on Montgomery's part, just because obviously Ullmark was going to get the first game of the season. He's a Vezina winner. I think it's sort of how the schedule's played out. But I think a good thing is, through the 5 games, Swayman got the Predators and the Kings, which of those 5 teams were the 2 best ones. Whereas last year was the opposite. Swayman would get sort of the lower ranked teams and Ullmark would get the higher ranked ones. So I like that so far. Give Swayman a little bit tougher of a workload. Give him some tougher teams. He can handle it. He's a younger guy. Let him kind of cook against those teams. But yeah, I'm not a goalie expert. Neither of us are goalie Bob. But through 5 games, both look. No one can be goalie Bob, by the way. Nobody can be goalie Bob. That's impossible.
No. There's only one goalie Bob. There's no goalie Evan. There's no goalie Conor.
No. Oh God, definitely not goalie Evan. Please, no goalie Evan. But no, overall, I think those 2 have picked up where they left off, and you hit it. They're going to be lulls. Can't panic. Connor, the first lull that hits, it's going to be trade him. You need to add either picks or add someone in the top 6. It's coming. But so far so good on that front with those 2 guys. Speaking of the trading thing, which is a lot of trade discourse on Saturday when it was announced that Jake DeBrusk would be scratched from Saturday night's game in LA due to being late to a team meeting. I think in LA, everyone's like, oh God, what did he do? What was he doing out there? And he was just late to a team meeting, gets scratched. And then I thought he was a lock to score on Sunday. I thought that was like, oh, that's an easy one. And as he was going in on the breakaway, I think was it a shorthanded breakaway? I think it was shorthanded. Yeah. I'm thinking as he's coming in, I'm like, I should have freaking bet that. Anytime goal scored, Jake DeBrusk. Didn't end up scoring, but was effective. Should we be worried about Jake DeBrusk in his standing with the Bruins?
I don't really think so. Both Montgomery and I guess most importantly, Montgomery said, shit happens. These things do happen occasionally. DeBrusk was accountable after the game. Wasn't a Devontae Parker situation or anything like that.
What do you think?
Yeah. The guy, DeBrusk admitted that he messed up there. You can't have that. You have to be accountable in that spot. So I think it was warranted from Montgomery to sit him, and DeBrusk acknowledges it. I don't think you should really read into in terms of what is he trying to do? Is he trying to get off the team? Is he not happy? No, I don't. I wouldn't put any credence at all into that. You don't want to see it, especially from a guy that's 27's been around for a while. But I think it's all about how he builds off of it, and you look at how he played in that game against Anaheim, especially with Poitras. If you can put that in the past and have it be something that gets forgotten in a couple of weeks, in a month or so, and he's producing, I think all gets forgiven there. I don't think this is a situation where you should read into it all in terms of his standing or where he wants to go. I think he wants to be here long term, but he's going to have to produce and warrant whatever that new contract is. And at least Sunday seemed like a step in the right direction for him. And if he can get some chemistry with Poitras and Gigi, who have been really good together, sure helps out the Bruins, right?
Yeah, it does. I also think it's definitely not intentional on DeBrusk's part because it's a contract year. This is a big year. Yes, you don't want to miss games. You don't want to.
It's a really bold move to be like, I'm going to intentionally be late and hurt my value in my contract year just because I'm supposedly not happy or whatever narrative you want to throw out there. Very bold move on his part. That's what he did.
It's like George Costanza doing the opposite. Jake DeBrusk, you know what? To get my long-term deal, I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to take the Stanley Cup trophy from 2011 and drive around with it in the back of the parking lot and let it, roll across the ground. I think at the time, it's funny. I actually like the move by Montgomery. I do. You got standards. You got to hit them. Everybody's got to hit them. And it's one game of 82. You sort of gotta enforce stuff, and I know there were a lot of questions about Montgomery after last season. How much of the team was him, and how much was Patrice Bergeron, and what was the authority he had over the team? And I think this is something that proves, he's the coach, he's the head coach, and I think you got to kind of have those standards and enforce them. I also think it kind of lights a fire under DeBrusk's ass because he hasn't been producing, or he hadn't at the time through 3 games a lot. So I think getting him going, kind of a wake-up call for him. Tough week for him, by the way. You had that Nesson TikTok that was everybody being like, he can't pack. Does he wash his clothes?
Which is, again, the most unsurprising thing ever of, the rest of the team just piling on Jake DeBrusk in any situation. Yeah. So, but the timing was not great.
It wasn't great. Then there was Jakub Lauko put out a tweet about DeBrusk. I forget what it said, but it was kind of a chirp. And so poor kid, probably, comes to a meeting late and, has to sit for Saturday's game. But a tough week for DeBrusk, only up from here. I agree with you. I don't think this is he's on his way out. The trade request is being sent right back in. They're calling Bruce Cassidy back from Vegas. I don't think that's happening. I think this is a one-time thing. Again, if it happens again, then you have something real.
You gotta stop.
You gotta have a real problem. Stop sleeping through meetings, buddy. I think overall, not something to be super worried about back in the lineup on Sunday. So that is that. So lots of interesting stuff from that Cali trip. I know you and I will be back on Poke the Bear Wednesday, kind of breaking down what we want to see, some bigger picture takeaways from the first bunch of games. Over on the Boston.com and the Boston Globe side, what can people look forward to from you, Connor?
Yeah, we're going to be covered throughout this season, whether it's looking at Poitras' development, the lineup reshuffles, the trends from this early stretch of the year. I think we're going to have kind of a takeaways of what we saw over this 4-game road trip after they play Connor Bedard and the Blackhawks once again. So a lot to take in, even though it's been an extended stretch with not a lot of games in between. still plenty to talk about, and there'll be more to talk about throughout the season. So you can read all of our stuff over at boston.com and the Globe. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, you can at Conor Ryan _93.
More Connor Bedard, but now it's gonna be Poitras versus Bedard, and they both got more experience than they did.
They'll both do that. They'll do that little Gretzky goal counter. Both of them score again. So
I hope they do. But anyways, that's Conor Ryan. I'm Evan Marinofsky. You Bruins Beat listeners, have a great rest of your week.
The CLNS Media Network is powered by FanDuel. Sign up at FanDuel.com/Boston and get in on the action with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose.